Welcome to a sewing vlog in which I may or may not actually sew any of my vintage garments on my giant list. But I will sew something. So I have been trying for about the last week to force myself to work on the things I am supposed to be working on. Unsuccessfully, by the way. I keep telling her being myself, to do the things, and she keeps doing other things instead. It's very frustrating. So I have not done any sewing on my vintage wardrobe slew of projects for like a month now. I've been finding just other projects to distract me, and I've been doing those instead, which isn't altogether bad. I did have my daughter's birthday dress to make. I did make that. I also want to make myself a dress that coordinates with her birthday dress. I haven't started that one, but I have been thinking about it a lot. And I've been digging up old projects of repairs and alterations, and I just keep finding other things to do. And June is halfway over. I should really do some sewing in the month of June for my vintage wardrobe. But all I really want to do is fix this dress. So here's what we're working with, and I am wearing the dress over a corset just because I happen to be wearing a corset today. Sometimes I wake up with back pain and I put a corset on and my back feels better. So this was one of those days where it felt good to wear a corset, so I did. Anyway, here's the dress. It's very cute. It's very comfortable, except it's very strained over the bust right now. And it's a modern dress with tiny, tiny serged seam allowances, so absolutely no room to take it out anywhere. But I have a plan. I have two similar colored blue cotton, I think cotton poly blend fabrics that are about the same weight as this fabric is. I believe this is a cotton. Check real quick. Yep, 100% cotton. So I think these will integrate nicely into this, and I'm going to make a patchwork sort of style dress. So it'll be intentionally 3 different colors. Originally my plan was to take apart just the bodice and make a princess seam here with the lighter fabric as an added color, and that was becoming a bit complicated. So instead of doing that, I'm gonna make it even more complicated. So I have this pattern, which is actually the pattern I want to use for my dress to go with my daughter's birthday dress. But I haven't tried this pattern out yet, so I thought this would be a good way to try it out and make sure it's going to work, because I have limited fabric of the birthday dress coordinating fabric that if I mess up or if it doesn't fit, I can't get any more of that fabric. But I actually have quite a bit of both of these, so I have room to make mistakes. I am going to replace the entire front of the bodice and the back lower portion of the bodice. I'm going to keep the yoke and I'm going to keep the collar. I'm also going to remove these pockets and probably put them back on the new bodice once I've made it. And I'm going to keep the buttons and buttonholes as is. But the new bodice will be the dark blue in the center, the light blue on the side, and then the same on the back, a dark blue panel in the center and light blue on either side. And then I'm also going to add panels into the skirt to make the patchwork flow nicely and also to give it a little bit more volume because I do love a floofy skirt. So I've gone ahead and cut out the new bodice pieces. I had to modify the back because the back of this pattern does not have a yoke, so I just trimmed off where the yoke would end on the other back pieces, added seam allowance at the top. And this was not in two pieces, it was one back piece with a dart, so I just added a seam allowance on either side of the dart lines and cut them that way, and then did a straight line up at the top where the dart will meet. So this is a dart that I just made into a princess seam, basically, for the back. These are the front pieces, and then I'm doing this view with the shaped buttonhole placket. So I am going to reuse the original buttons and buttonholes, but I'm going to add this. It comes up straight and then curves to make that neck opening. So it's like this. So I'm going to use the original buttonhole placket up to here and then add another piece, which I will cut from the original bodice after I take those pieces apart. So that's all going to work, and like I said, I'm going to reuse the original collar and collar stand and the yoke in the back because I like that feature. And I don't know if I mentioned, but this skirt does have pockets in the side seams. So I'm going to keep them intact. So my plan is to basically slice open the skirt in the front on either side, add in a panel of the dark blue, and then just gather the top more to fit the new bodice. And then on the back, I'm going to do the same thing, 2 slices, and then add in light blue panels in the same way. But the side seams are going to stay at the side seams, so the pockets will stay where they are. There will just be more width added to the skirt both in front and in back. So this is roughly what it's going to look like from the front. And this will be the back. So now I'm going to go seam rip this entire thing apart, basically. It's going to be a big mess. Alright, I have taken apart the dress, and as I predicted, it is a mess. There's there's so much going on. I actually only took it apart into 2 parts. Most of this is going to stay. Most of this is not coming back. So, what have I taken off? The entire front bodice, both pieces, and the back bodice. I may use this fabric, because it's perfectly good fabric, to supplement in any places that are missing. Certainly the front curve of the button placket is going to be cut from this, probably. I might put these pockets back on, and I might cut new bias armhole facings from what remains. I don't think I want to reuse the original bias armhole facings. I did leave the bodice lining attached. I will probably end up opening up the side seams and adding some extra width in there because since I'm making the outer bodice larger, the lining will also need to be larger. But I would like to use as much of the bodice lining as I can. I think I can use the full back and just add a piece in at the sides. We'll see. The collar is staying on. The back yoke is staying on. And the front button plackets I'm going to leave on the skirt because I think that will just make my life a little bit easier. I am going to have to remove the skirt from the waist. I think I'm going to have to take the skirt lining off. I didn't talk about this yesterday, but my new bodice pieces are longer than the original bodice. So you can see it's a good 2.5 inches longer, which I did intentionally because this skirt is a little bit high-waisted and I would like to drop it down. So it occurs to me that if I want to keep the skirt and especially the skirt lining attached at the button placket so I don't have to take it all apart, I will need to add like a waistband in the middle of the lining. So in between the bodice and the skirt I will need a band to drop the waistline down. But that's fine because I was already planning on opening up the back of the lining skirt and adding in another panel to give it more volume. So the skirt lining currently does not have much flare to it at all. It has a little bit, and the excess is taken in with these little tucks in the waist. But if I'm adding a lot of volume to the outer skirt, I think I should add a little bit of volume to the lining skirt, and that way I know it will fit me at the waist because I'm going to be expanding the bodice, so I should expand the skirt to match. So I need to put the new bodice pieces together and attach them to the original yoke and see how much width I need to add to the lining to make it match. And then I'll go from there. I have decided I do want to be extra and use a different color of thread for top stitching on each of these fabrics. So I'm going to top stitch inside the curve on the front. I'm going to press the seam this way and top stitch here on the back. And then after the yoke gets attached back at the top, I will top stitch with this one. And I will also use all three of these colors in the correct portions of the skirt hem for each of those fabrics. So I will need both a bobbin and a top spool of each color. I love decorative top stitching. Like, look how nice this looks. I'm so glad I decided to use 3 different colors of thread because it is going to look so good in the end. Okay, I have tried this on and I have figured a few things out. So I had kept the original lining attached at the top neck and the lining is still attached at the shoulders. I did unpick the side seams because I knew I was going to need to add space in here anyway. And as it turns out, I am not going to be able to use the original front lining piece because it just does not cover enough of the new front. I would have to add in pieces all around and that's just too much. So I am going to unpick the shoulder seams and get that out of the way. I am still going to use the original back lining because it does still match up pretty nicely. I always knew I was going to need to trim this armhole under the yoke, so that's fine. But I know I'm going to need to add a little bit here, but I think I can just add my additional bit on to the new front lining pieces that I'm going to cut. And then I will add basically an internal waistband along the bottom here. But what I think I'm going to do is use these pieces of the original lining after I take out the dart to make the new side front lining pieces. I think I should have enough. Once I open up the dart, that will bring this down. I should have enough to cut out this piece, and then I will just need to cut out this piece, the center front, from probably my light blue. I have the most left of this fabric. Okay, so a bit of unpicking and a bit of cutting. Also, I have not top stitched the side seams of the bodice yet, partly because I'm not sure if I want to. I might just leave them pressed open and, you know, they'll be lined so there won't be any raw edges, but also that way I will still be able to make adjustments here. I already know I'm going to need to bring in the top a little bit so I can get the dress to fit me perfectly. Okay, this is hilarious and not at all surprising to me. I have seam ripped and now ironed flat both of the front lining pieces, and they do not match up with each other at all. I have them matched here just at the point under the arm, and that's the only spot where they match up even remotely. It's so funny. Clearly one of them was not cut on the grain properly, and I think it's this one because there's all these wrinkles from where it was set into the dress, and it was just always pulling funny out the shoulder, which I find very amusing. So probably a good thing I'm not using these in the same places that they were. I'm just going to use them as fabric to cut out new side front pieces. Like so. Of course, while I was cutting this piece out, I totally forgot that I wanted to save extra room on this edge to be able to extend it to match up here. So I'll have to figure something else out, I guess. Okay, I think this is actually going to be fine because I tried it on and there was gapping under the arm, so I moved this seam over, just the whole seam, into the side back to take out some of the excess, and that brings it basically right up to the line where the lining ends. At least the stitching line brings it up almost to the seam allowance. So I should be able to add this piece just with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and still match it up to where it needs to go on the lining. And I think I'm going to use the bottom portion of the original back piece for this little extension of the back bodice that I'm going to add to make the bodice longer and drop it down to my actual natural waist. I might also bring this neckline down just a little bit more. I wasn't super thrilled with how it looked in the mirror, but we'll see. I keep getting distracted by new projects that were not on my list to sew this year. This one is on theme though, so there is that. So you remember my pale mint green blouse from my Rating My Vintage Makes video? I've been kind of staring at it in my closet almost every day when I go to pick out an outfit to wear, because I want to wear it, but it's been too hot lately. It's been in the 80s and 90s constantly since mid-May, at least since June began. So it's too hot to wear long sleeves, even breathable long sleeves. I need more short sleeve blouses in my wardrobe. And I was remembering that specific blouse because when I made it, I did not use all of the fabric. I put aside a good chunk that I was fully intending to use to make another blouse someday down the line, and I was reminded of it when I came across these buttons. in my button stash because I remember really wanting to use them for that blouse, but I didn't have enough. I only had 3, but they were such a good color match. I really wanted to use them. And I remember setting them aside and saying I will use them someday when I make another blouse from that leftover fabric. And I found that leftover fabric. Here it is. There's not a lot left. There's this weird shaped piece, but this is along the fold. So there's over a yard of not quite half the width along the fold, and then another section. So I'm going to try to make something out of it that uses 3 buttons. And then I'll just have a bonus blouse because it wasn't part of my original lineup, but I'm going to make it vintage so it will fit in with the rest of the wardrobe and give me more summer options, because I am definitely finding I'm going to need a lot of summer options. The one I'm looking at right now is this reprint McCall's pattern, which is a dress, but it does have 3 buttons, and I could just make the bodice with the short sleeves and extend the length to make it a blouse and just not put a skirt on it. I've done that before. That's easy. The only thing I need to decide is if I want to have this contrast bit at the neck and on the armbands a different fabric, and if so, what fabric? That's entirely dependent on whether or not there's enough fabric here to make this work. So that will be my next project because I'm excited about it, and the way my creative brain works is I need to work on the thing that's exciting me at the time. Even though I should really finish the blue patchwork dress that I started on as a distraction from projects I was already planning on doing. I did put a poll on Instagram about which summer dress I should start next, even though I already know which one I want to start next. I'm gonna let the people decide. I also really want to make the 2 light gray rayon blouses that I have planned. I only know one pattern that I want to use for this, but I hope I have enough to make 2. And I'm going to need to cut them out at the same time so that I correctly utilize my fabric and make sure I have enough for both. But you know what? Sometimes it's helpful for me to have several projects going at once, and then that way I can bounce around to different ones depending on what I feel like working on. 'Cause sometimes I get bored or I get stuck on a difficult part, or I need to think it over and work it out in my brain before I can actually do it. And taking a break from the project that I'm stuck on by doing another project is a good way to keep my motivation going and, you know, continue to be productive. I have been doing a lot of productive procrastination lately, so I've not been doing nothing. I just haven't been working on my main year-long project for the past month. Oh well. really want to do? I want to copy this dress. I love this dress so much. It's so comfortable. It goes on over my head. It ties around the waist. It's cute. I can dress it up. I can dress it down. It has pockets. I want another one. It's so easy to get distracted. I have not been keeping you updated in this vlog. I apologize. June has been, I guess hectic would be the word, and things are starting to calm down, except that this weekend I will be traveling to Iowa, where I will spend the first 2 weeks of July, so my July vlog will be coming to you from Iowa. Very exciting. So that means it is time for me to start assembling the things, including sewing projects, that I will need to pack to bring with me to work on while I am there and have access to my mother's multiple sewing machines and entire studio of equipment. So I don't need to bring tools with me, just maybe some thread and whatever notions I already have for the things that I'm going to need to make. So I pretty much just need to bring the actual projects. But I need to prioritize and decide which ones I really want to work on. And to that end, I created a poll, which I put on Instagram and on Facebook and on YouTube, because I can finally add images to YouTube polls. That's such a game changer because I am not good at Instagram. Case in point, I had to make 2 separate polls for Instagram because I didn't think anyone voted in the first one, and then I realized that I had to cast a vote in order to see the results. But anyway, I did a second one and actually advertised that I was doing a poll, so I think more people saw it and were able to vote. And I got very interesting results. Allow me to share. In the first Instagram poll, which I think very few people saw and voted in, it was a tie between the Daisies dress and the purple/pink dress. And then in the second poll, the Daisies was the clear winner, with the linen dress coming in second and the red and purple ones basically tied. Then on YouTube, which this poll doesn't have an end point, I think anyone can just continue voting in it. Currently, the white linen dress is winning with 32%, and the Daisies and the purple one are tied, each with 26%, and the red tropical print is in last place with 17%. Then on Facebook, I didn't do an actual poll because there doesn't seem to be a mechanism for that, so people just voted in the comments, and some people voted for more than one, so I just totaled those votes and got the percentage. Purple was the clear winner of the Facebook poll. Daisies came in second, and then white, and then red. So the red dress was the loser in every single poll I conducted. Kind of interesting, which actually aligns with my personal style aesthetic. The red one is the one I'm least excited about. But I guess a lot of my fans really loved both the Daisies and the purple. Maybe it's the floral prints that they really like. Totaling it all up, Daisies won, just barely. Purple came in a very close second, white and red a moderate third, and then the red one was the distinct loser of the polls. So that's fine. I will definitely bring the Daisies dress, and I think the white and red dress, because that's the one I most want to work on. But I might just bring the purple one too and see. Maybe I'll just work on all 3 at once. Who knows? I also need to bring a swatch of this fabric. I'm not going to work on this dress anytime soon because it's wool and it's summer and no. But I need buttons for this dress, Where's the pattern? Hold on. I had this all really well organized. I don't know what happened. Oh, there it is. So this pattern, I need 9 buttons to make this dress, although I haven't entirely decided. I might still make it a blouse and a skirt and have mix and match pieces to coordinate with it. But I somehow missed this fabric and pattern when I was doing my first search for buttons, but I actually don't think I was going to find anything in either of these colors at Joann. It's a very maroon wine red, and I wasn't seeing anything like that when I was there. And it's a very like blue forest green. It's so pretty. But I have hopes that my mother's button stash might turn up something that will be suitable for this project. So I will have a look while I'm there and spare my mother having to go through and look for buttons for me. So let me just cut a swatch. And tape it here in the back of my book that I will bring with me to pick out the buttons needed. So we're gonna say red or green. I need at least 9. 10 would be even better. And I think I want them at least an inch wide in diameter because they look pretty substantial on the pattern. Okay, I did find I have plenty of options for cream blouse buttons. I don't think I need to pick out specific ones for that blouse quite yet. And I'm probably going to put off making that blouse, even though I'm really excited for it, until the fall when it gets cooler, because it's much too warm for long sleeves right now. I say that as I'm currently wearing long sleeves, but these are very flowy and I can push them up, and they're cotton voile so they breathe. I do have buttons for all the jackets and vests that I need to make, and it looks like I have them for all of the dresses for now. So it seems that the plaid wool is the only fabric that I need to find buttons for immediately. And I will also just pack up any and all of the projects that I'm currently working on and take them with me, which at the moment is the blouse made from this dress pattern, this dress that I'm remaking to fit me, although I really hope to have this done in the next couple of days. I'm very close. Actually, let me give you an update on it. The bodice is all together, and I've even attached the original front pockets back on, and I have started doing the bias binding, well, facing really, because it's going to turn in to the inside. And the collar is still flopping around because I can't attach it back on until I have finished the front button placket edge, and I can't do that until I have reattached the skirt because the buttonhole placket is still sewn to the skirt. I didn't want to take it off and have to deal with putting it back on, so I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it attached to the front. So currently what I'm debating is whether or not I want to switch colors of the top stitching when I go to sew down the bias facing on the inside, because I was already planning on switching the color at every junction of different colored panels in the skirt at the hem, and I have changed colors for the top stitching on every section of the bodice so far to match each of those fabrics, so I think I really do want to keep the top stitching. The only issue is that I should really stitch from the inside of the facing so I can stitch right along the fold. So then I need to put each new color for the outside of the bodice in the bobbin, and it's going to be a lot harder to tell where to stop stitching exactly because the lining does not always line up at the seams with the outer fabric. So I think I'm just gonna have to put a lot of pins, one at every single juncture, so I know exactly where to stop. I don't know if I mentioned or not, but I also went ahead and made the tie belt that the pattern calls for, and I pieced it because I was already piecing everything else, and this way I was able to get the best use of my fabrics. I even cut right along the selvage of both of these because they both have really nice finished selvages, so I don't have to hem the longest edge. And kind of as a practice, I went ahead and hemmed the other edge of this, and then I just stopped at each seam, and I kept the tails of the thread long. So without back stitching, I will use these tails to tie knots and then bury them inside the hem so that it will look seamless. Each thread color will stop at its respective seam and then continue the rest of the way. I'm really happy with how this turned out, actually. So that's my plan for doing the hem, but on the hem I will be able to see, just like this, exactly where the seam juncture is, and I won't have to guess. But with this, it's gonna be different because it's lined and the seams don't line up. Originally, I wasn't planning on facing the armhole. I was going to use the bias to just bind the armhole, and then it wouldn't have mattered because it would all be the same bias binding color. But I decided I wasn't going to like the look of that. I wanted the binding to be inside and invisible. Also, I did not bleed on my fabric. That is lipstick. Oops. It'll wash off, probably. If not, it's in the back under my arm, and so whatever, who cares. Okay. Gonna do some sewing. Wish me luck. Okay, this is really satisfying. Totally worth it. Okay, now it is time to split the skirt and add the panels. I have gone ahead and pinned the pockets out of the way so that I don't accidentally slice through them. And I'm going to just match up the top and the hem of the front panel, and I think slice straight up that fold. A dress can never have too many pockets, right? So in addition to leaving the side pockets in the skirt, because why would I remove them, and putting the bodice front pockets back on because, you know, they already exist, so I might as well use them, the pattern has an option for patch pockets on the skirt as well. You can kind of see them here. Cute little decorative pockets. And I had little scraps of this dark blue that was already almost the perfect size and shape for the top of the pocket. So I went ahead and cut some of the scraps of the light blue into the pocket itself. So it's a fun little shape. It's wider and curved along the top edge, and then you gather that up, sew it into the band, which gets folded in half to enclose the gathers, and then it becomes a square when you sew it on to the skirt. So I'm gonna have 6 pockets on this dress, and that just makes me so happy. How cute are these? Oh, I love them. I might start putting this style of patch pockets on everything. Ah, I love them. They're too cute. So I really want to work on this blouse, which I have successfully cut out from the remnants of my original mint green rayon blouse. So now I'll have a short sleeve blouse, but I don't have any thread that matches this color. I think I used it all when I was making my glacier dress. I do have thread that matches this contrast color, and so I've pieced together the facing, and I think I can go ahead and add the sleeve bands to the bottom, and then I'm gonna have to stop until I can buy thread, and that's probably not going to be until I get to Iowa and I'm visiting my mom. Oh, I did also have to piece one of the sleeve bands because I was just using scraps. This is an entirely scrap project, but I do think it's going to work. I was able to cut an extra 3 inches in length on the front and back bodice pieces. They do get lower than 3 inches at the sides because just of the shape of the piece. I cut them out, you know, I basically, hold on, let me show you. Okay, when I was cutting them out, I put the pattern pieces as far apart from each other as I could while still fitting them on the fabric I had available. And then I measured the space in between and just sliced down the center so that there would be even amounts of excess added to both sides. And as you can see, I also did not follow the taper of the side seams, just to give myself some extra width because I'm making this a blouse instead of a dress. And I also need it to be slightly larger, I think. I might not need this much space, but this will give me something to play with. So what I really should do next is cut out the blouses from my gray lightweight linen. I know I can definitely get at least 1 blouse, but I want to get 2. And I need to cut them out both simultaneously so that I make the best use of my fabric. I want to avoid having to do creative piecing on these as much as possible. I mean, not that I mind creative piecing, but sometimes I just need a brain break. Okay, I think I've got it. I have all of the pieces for the bodice of this dress, which I'm going to turn into a blouse, short sleeves, because I have very limited fabric. And that just needs the front, back, and sleeve, plus the neckline binding. And then I was also able to get all of the pieces for this short sleeve blouse with the bow tie collar. And I'm nervous about it because I don't know if I'm going to like wearing this style of collar. I don't typically like things high around my neck, but I'm gonna try it. So I've got the front there, back here, short sleeve, and here's the tie collar. And I will be able to piece the neckline binding for the other blouse by cutting just along here, and that's more than half of the length, so because I only need one of these. So I think I'm ready to cut it out. I'm using old British coins as pattern weights because it's much easier to move things around and adjust just minutely with pattern weights than it is with pins. And I've got some really close margins here. Like, this is going to cut into that seam allowance a little bit. These just barely don't meet this one here. And I've got everything on the proper grain line, except on this one I do want to add a bit more width at the bottom, so I'm just tapering it from the top neck edge, which I want to keep the same. So, I mean, this is on the fold, so it's just going to add a little bit extra at the bottom. And if it adds too much, I can always make the dart deeper. This piece does come right to the edge of the fabric. It's just hanging off the edge there. And I'm going to extend the bottom of the bodice pieces on the first pattern because it's meant to be a dress with a waist seam, and so I'm giving it an extra 2 inches I've just drawn on with pencil, and then a little bit extra width at the bottom. Same on the front here, giving myself some extra width both at the bust and at the waist, and then also cutting it a little in from the fold, because any excess here I can just gather more into the neckline binding. But the pattern is the correct bust size for me, but not the correct waist size, so I'm just giving myself a little bit of extra. I'm really nervous about this. I really love this fabric. I love the texture of it. It's kind of crepey, and I really love the very subtle, almost striped pattern. It's hard to see on camera, I think, but I think it's going to be really pretty and hopefully really comfy. But I want to have 2 very different style short sleeve blouses, and I think I'm going to achieve that with these, because one will have a nice scoop neck and one will have a high neck with the bow tie. And this pattern is from 1962, so it's, you know, 2 decades past my main 1940s wardrobe, but I think that's okay. Okay, I'm getting really excited because this blouse should be really simple to put together. It's just the front and the back and the sleeve, and then gather the neckline into the bias binding. So I should be able to get it done today, and then I'll have accomplished at least one thing for the month. I did not, in fact, finish that blouse on that day, or indeed in the month of June at all, but never fear, I will finish it in July. And no, that is not me predicting the future. I am so far behind editing these vlogs that it is now August, so I already know what happens in July because it's already happened. But you'll get to see me finish it in the next vlog, never fear. Anyway, stay tuned and I will see you in the next one. Focus on the buttons, not my face. You need to stay where I put you, please. This style of potch packets. Potch packets?